Control flow statements are key to any programming language. These statements enable you to perform certain piece of code, certain piece of task depending on certain conditions. So in Rust also we have control flow constructs, and the most common of them are if and loop. So if enables you to execute some piece of code if the condition is true. And we can have multiple conditions. So in that case, else if will be useful. And then we have loops which will enable you to perform certain piece of code again and again. So if you have a code inside a loop, it will be performed again and again, and we will see how we can break out of that loop conditionally. So the main focus of this lecture would be understanding the if and else if expressions, and in the next video we will start looking into different types of loops. So let's begin. If expression, the syntax is like this. So we write if, then a condition, and if this condition is true, the code within this code block. So this opening curly braces and closing curly braces is one code block. So this code block will be executed if this condition is true. If this condition is not true, then this other code block will be executed. So this is a very simple syntax. For example, if we have a is a variable I32 and its value is 10. So we see that here it's a condition. If a is less than 100, so we see that 10 is less than 100. So this condition is true. So it will enter this code block and it will print condition is true. And it will not enter the second else block because it will perform just one of the code blocks, not all of them. Now you must be thinking, what if there are more number of conditions to handle? Then for that we have else if. So first it's same as earlier, if condition 1, then execute this code block. If this condition is not true, then only it will check other conditions. If this condition is true, then it will exit out of this complete block. So if it's suppose it's not true, then it will check the next condition. Next condition you can specify using else if, then condition 2. And you can add more conditions like else if condition 3, else if condition 4, and so on. And finally, if none of the conditions are true, you can write some default code in the last else block. So you may be given some condition, some situation such that condition 1 is true and condition 2 is also true, condition 3 is also true, but still only condition 1 will be run in that case because first it will check for condition 1. We will see all of these examples in our code shortly. So first let's look at theory, and then we can use if statement, if expression. I have written if is an expression to assign a value to a variable. In the last video we had seen what is the difference between expression and statements. So expressions evaluate to something and statements do some command, but it does not return something. So if we want to assign a value to some variable, then we need to use expression, and statement will not work in that case. So if is an expression, so we can use it to assign a value to a variable. For example, we have set a condition to be true, and then we want to assign a value to this number depending on this condition. So if condition, then 5, else 10. So in this case, number will get the value of 5 because the condition is true. So the blocks of code evaluate to last expression. We have seen that, and this is a block of code from here to here, and similarly here to here. So whatever is the last expression in them, that blocks evaluate to that. And in this case, the value of whole if expression depends on which block of code executes, depending on this condition. So, and one thing to note here is that all the potential blocks, so here we have two potential blocks. So either this block will be executed or this. So both expressions must evaluate to a value that is of the same type. to which we are assigning. So here this is I32 5 and this is also I32. So this number will get a value of 5 and this will be I32. But let's say if we have this 5 but here instead of 10 it's a string 10, then this will throw an error, because depending on the condition it will either evaluate to a I32 or a string, so that will be an error condition and we are not allowed to do that. So now let's see all of these in the code. So I have created a new project, control flow. So let's first start with the simple if condition. So let a is 10 and then we write if a is less than 100, then print condition is true, else condition is false. So let's run it. So it should print condition is true because 10 is less than 100. So you see that it's printed. Now let's change this 10 to be more than 100. Let's say 500. And now let's again run it. And now it prints condition is false because this was evaluated to false. So it entered the next code block. Now let's check for multiple conditions. So let x is 12 and then we have some conditions like if a mod 4 is 0, that is if, so it's x here is 0, so it's divisible by 4, then print divisible by 4. And now add a few more conditions. Three, 2 and last else. Not divisible by 4, 3 or 2. So let's run it. So it prints divisible by 4. Now you will say that 12 is divisible by not just 4 but also 3, also 2. So why did it print just this? Because it checks the conditions in this order, in whatever order it's written. So first it will check if this condition is true or not. If it's true, then it will enter this code block and then come out of this. So if this condition was false, so instead of 4, let's say I write here 5. So it will check it's not divisible by 5. So it will check the next condition and it will see that it's true. So it will now print divisible by 3. So you see that. So only one of the conditions will be evaluated. Now let's see our next example, that is assigning it to a variable. So let condition equal to true and then we will assign it to a number. If condition, then 5, else 10. So remember not to put semicolon here, otherwise it will not be an expression and it will not return any value. So let's first print the value of number. And run it. So we see that number gets the value of 5 because the condition was true. Now let's make it false, and run it again. Now it should get the value of 10. So it now gets the value of 10. And now let's see what happens if I add a semicolon here. Now it should error out because it's not returning anything. So it's expecting that it will return a value, but these are statements and these don't evaluate to a value and don't return anything. So let's make it again expressions. And now let's check another case that we had seen that both of these potential results should be of the same type. So here we make it a string and here it's number. Now let's run it and we see that it's an error. If and else have incompatible types. So these both should be same. We can make it 5 and you see that automatically it's changing to str. Now it's fine. Both have to be same type, no matter which type. So that's all for if and else if expressions. In the next video we will see loops.